Hey everyone, Chris here from IELTS Advantage, and in today's lesson we're going to look at 7 steps to getting a higher IELTS band. This is one of the most common questions that we get, a very simple question but a very important question. How can I improve my IELTS scores? If you're watching this video, that's what you want to do. So we're going to give you 7 simple steps that you can take, and if you take these simple steps and take action on them, you pretty much are guaranteeing that you will improve to the score that you need. So let's get straight into it. Number 1, this is really important, find one reliable source. So I've put source, by this I mean a website or a YouTube channel or a school or a teacher, the source of information that you are using. Why is this really important? Well, the most important thing is illustrated by these 2 diagrams. Most students, instead of following one source, they're looking at a couple of books, they're looking at a couple of websites, maybe a couple of YouTube channels, going to 2 different schools and have a one-on-one teacher, and they're going nowhere because they are going in 17 different directions at once and they're not making any progress. But if you follow just one source of information, you are going to get to your goal 10 times faster. And you're also not going to be confused because each book, each website, each YouTube channel, each teacher is telling you a different thing. And that can be very frustrating, and many people just give up because of that, or many people fail the test because, especially your writing and your speaking, that's going to be a reflection of your thinking. So if you go into the test very confused and you haven't made any progress, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to fail. Find one reliable source of information and follow it, and ignore everything else. But find someone reliable, someone who has a past, like a track record of helping people and who you feel comfortable with, and just stick with that. It's going to save you a huge amount of time and worry and stress. Number 2, set realistic goals. I used to work for the British Council, and one of the things that I used to do for them was I would do level testing. And every Saturday morning, students would come in and speak to me, and we'd give them a little test to see which class they were going to go into. And for the IELTS students, they would always say, I want a 7 or above. We would say, well, right now you're at a band 5 or a band 5.5. There's no way that you're going to get a band 7. And what they would do is they would pick up their bag, walk out the door, and never come back. They would go to the school across the street that would tell them, yeah, no problem, we'll put you in the band 7 class, because they weren't really interested in helping them get a band 7. They were interested in taking their money. You need to have realistic goals. What does this house and key mean? So imagine you want to buy a house that's $100,000. So a $100,000 house, if you wanted to pay for it in cash, $100,000, that is way beyond your means. For most people, you cannot show up with $100,000 and just buy a house. But what can you do instead? You can get a mortgage. So a mortgage is a realistic goal. Why do 99% of people buy houses with a mortgage? Because it's a realistic thing that they can do. Most people can't afford $100,000, but they can afford $500 a month. You need to have realistic goals about your IELTS progress and your preparation and what scores you will be able to get. And instead of trying to shoot for the moon and shoot for something that is not within your grasp, do things on a consistent basis every day that will get you to your goal eventually. And we'll talk about that in a second. But don't think that you are going to get a band 9 if you are currently at a band 6. It's just not going to happen. You can get there eventually, but you're not going to get there next week, no matter what your school or your teacher tells you. Number 3, identify the real problem. Imagine your car breaks down and you take it to a mechanic, and the mechanic gives you a bunch of tools and says, fix it yourself. You would have no idea what to do. You'd be like this lady here. No idea how to fix your car. But what if they said you have to do it? You would try and fix every little piece, but you'd still have no idea what's going on. Whereas if the mechanic did it, they'd be able to identify the exact thing wrong with your car, and they'd be able to fix that in 20-30 minutes really quickly. It would take you maybe years to do that. Same thing with your writing, with your speaking, with your reading, with your listening. Let's take writing for example. You might have no problem with your vocabulary. You might have no problem with your task response, no problem with your coherence and cohesion. Your problem might be grammar. But within grammar, you might have no problem with your punctuation, no problem with your tenses, no problem with any other part of grammar apart from one tiny bit, which is articles. So you need to fix that tiny bit in order to improve your overall score. So there might be 3 or 4 things that you really need to work on that would get you to that score that you need, but you need to identify them. And that takes us back to number 1. Find one reliable source, find one good school, one good online course, one good teacher that is going to help you identify that. If they do identify that, you're going to make progress rapidly. If you don't, you're going to be like this lady here who has no idea what to do, and you're just failing the test over and over and over and over again because you're not fixing the real problem. Number 4, make a study plan. All right, this is related to my second point, which is have realistic goals. All right, so let's look at my goal for my company. So I want to help students improve their IELTS scores by producing the best free and paid content in the world. That is a really big, hairy, audacious goal that's very difficult to achieve. And if I just looked at this every day and I have no idea what do you do in order to achieve that? It would take you many years in order to do that. But instead of having this, what I have daily tasks that I need to complete. So at 8 a.m. I did a success story video with one of our students. Then I spoke to students and spoke to our team. And then I made a video this morning at 11 a.m. Right now I'm doing this. Next I'll do this. Then I'll work on some data. And then I will have a meeting with someone. These are very achievable and will help me move towards this goal every single day. So if you make a study plan, and I'll show you one in a second, and just tick off each thing that you need to do each day, you're moving slowly but steadily and consistently towards your goal. Most people just say things like, I want a band 7. And then when you break it down for them and say, okay, if you do this every single day for 6 weeks or 6 months, then you'll get there. That's not what people want to hear. They want to hear some quick tip or some hack or some shortcut, something that doesn't really work, but that is really attractive. Like, think about going to the gym. It's really easy to do what most people want to do. Let's say you want to lose weight, eat less and move more. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. But people spend billions of dollars on cheat diets and the latest gizmo to help them lose weight, and all of them are nonsense. You just need to go for a walk each day and eat less ice cream or whatever it is you're eating. So it's really simple, but you need to make a plan. You need to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to do and make a plan of attack. Number 5, take consistent action. So instead of, the day before your test, it always amazes me if I go onto like message boards and Facebook groups and everything. One of the most common things you'll see is, my test is tomorrow, tell me how can I improve this essay? Or my test is tomorrow, can you help me improve my speaking? It's like, no, you cannot help anybody 24 hours before their test. Instead of doing that, start now and take consistent action. So imagine your goal is to improve to a band 7 in writing by turning my specific weaknesses into strengths. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal. However, instead of looking at that each day, imagine you get up at 5 a.m. and you worked on your vocabulary, because it needs a little bit of work. Most of your grammar is okay, but you need to work on articles, so you do that for an hour. You really struggle with idea generation, so you're going to practice that at 7 p.m. And then you also need a little bit of work on your paraphrasing, so you're going to work at that at 8 p.m. And that's what you do every day. You do about, I'm not saying you need to do 4 hours, but for this person, this is achievable. Most people can get up early, and then when they get back from work, do a little bit of work in the evening. And if you figure out what your real problems are, you make a study plan and you take consistent action, you're moving towards your goal. And if you think that there's another way of doing it, you're wrong. This is the only way of doing it, is taking these steps. Number 6, use mistakes to improve. So most people think that their progress is going to be this green line. So they're going to start studying, they're going to start taking action, and they're just going to get better and better and better and better and better and better and better. But the red line is reality. They're not going to improve like this in just a straight line. They're going to get better, and then they're going to get worse, and then they're going to get better, and they're going to get worse, and then they're going to get better, and they're going to get worse. And this means that at these points, they're going to get very frustrated, because look at the difference between their expectations and reality. And this area is where most people give up. They're like, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'll never be able to do this, and then they just simply give up. This is a really silly way to think, because at each point you are learning and you're making progress. And this is from an excellent book called Principles by Ray Dalio. He's one of the most, if not the most successful financial investments of all time. And a great diagram from his book shows this. So you have a goal, you fail, so you make a mistake, then you learn from your mistakes and you improve and you get better. All right? But it's at this point where people really see a lot of difference. So a lot of people make a mistake here, but instead of using that mistake, they give up. The people that make mistakes, say you submit your writing and it's just full of red and you've made so many mistakes. The people who learn from that and then get better are the people who are going to make progress. If you see each mistake as evidence that you're not good enough, you will give up. If you see each mistake as an opportunity to improve, you won't give up. You'll keep going. And that's what brings me on to number 7, keep going. It's an excellent book called Grit. This lady is called Angela Duckworth. She's a professor at University of Pennsylvania, I believe, but she's got a really good TED Talk. It's called Grit. So I'll put it up here. If you just Google or put into YouTube Grit, Angela Duckworth, and she did a massive study on, and part of it was on academic performance and the difference between students who did very well and students who didn't do very well. Was IQ a factor? No, not really. For IELTS, would linguistic ability be a factor? You would expect it. It's measuring your ability to speak and write and listen and read in English. But for the majority of our students, the vast majority of students, this is not the deciding factor. The deciding factor is perseverance. Keeping going in the face of failure. You're going to make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, and you just need to keep going and seeing those mistakes as opportunities to improve. And if you do that, you're going to see a massive improvement in your score. If you go to our website, you will find, so if you Google IELTS Advantage, you'll find 64, I believe it's 64, yeah, 64 videos, one-on-one videos with students that we have helped get a 7 or above. You probably won't have time to go through all of them, but I have went through all of them, and every single one of them followed those 7 steps. They found one source of information, which was me, and I'm not saying this because I want you to join me or anything like that. They find one reliable source of information, they set realistic goals, they identified the real problems, they made a study plan, they took action, they used each mistake to help them improve, and they kept going. And that made a huge difference to their scores, and that's how you improve your scores. Hey, Chris here again. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you want more videos, here are some for you here on the screen. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hopefully see you again soon. Bye-bye.